Well, first, let me thank you. Thank you all for joining me today with Annemarie Cross, the CEO and founder of Industry Thought Leader Academy and Ambitious Entrepreneur Podcast Network. She is a personal branding and podcast strategist and business coach. And today she's going to discuss how to be distinguishable, uncopyable, and irresistible, which I think sounds like a recipe for success for sure. And I'm Linda Fisk. I'm the CEO of LeadHERship Global, and I am absolutely thrilled to welcome you to the program today. LeadHERship Global is the most impactful community of extraordinary women in the world. We unleash the full potential of high-performing and growth-oriented leaders in a confidential, supportive, and private community. LeadHERship Global helps members accelerate their success by defining their vision, growing their leadership, expanding their influence, and leaving a lasting legacy. So if you're interested in learning more about this remarkable community of women leading across business, entertainment, and politics, then please reach out. It would be my pleasure to get to know each and every one of you. Today, we are in for a treat. Annemarie Cross is going to talk to us about how to showcase your expertise with a compelling message that resonates with your ideal clients while building a profitable and scalable business. So today, you're going to learn some important things. Number one, the common mistakes that can stunt business growth and eventually leading to burnout for service-based businesses. Two, why speaking to everyone will end up in speaking to no one, and what you should be doing instead to cut through the noise. Three, how to become a distinguishable, uncopyable, and irresistible asset to your ideal client, even if you're a crowded marketplace. Next, Annemarie is going to talk to us about the system and model that will take you from being really an underpaid commodity to a highly paid authority. And lastly, she'll talk to us about the number one digital asset that's often missing in thought leadership collateral that all ideal clients can't wait to get their hands on, and much more. I tell you, I am so glad that all of you have joined me here to learn from Annemarie Cross. Again, she's the CEO and founder of Industry Thought Leader Academy and the Ambitious Entrepreneur Podcast Network. With that, I'll turn it over to Annemarie. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much, Linda. Let me share my screen and we will get into it straight away. Got a lot to cover, as you've said. So can everyone see my screen? Terrific. Great. Got lots of nods there. So yes, I want to talk about how to become distinguishable, uncopyable, and irresistible, even if you're in a crowded marketplace. As we know, the things that have happened in the world, there are so many more people who are now in business and also online sharing their message. So if you are maybe at the beginning stages of your business, you've got no idea how to position yourself, your message, so that you stand out in a crowded marketplace, you're in the right place. Or maybe you're transitioning from corporate, you're bringing a lot of corporate experience into your coaching or consulting business, and you're not really sure of the best way to showcase diverse expertise into a concise and compelling message. You've got so much going on. It's how do I narrow this down into something that just cuts through? Or maybe you have been in business for a while, and whilst you're generating some results, you're not generating as much visibility as you'd like, particularly for where you're at and the diverse richness that you bring to the table, and you're certainly not securing the number of clients that you'd like. In fact, if the world's best kept secret resonates with you, you are in the right place. So following on from what Linda said, I want to dive into these specific areas today, common personal branding myths and mistakes that will keep you from becoming distinguishable, uncopyable, and irresistible. Even though it is 2021, I still see some of these things filtering through. Why authenticity? We've heard that word for many years, authenticity, smorphenticity. It's not a buzzword. It actually is paramount when it comes to positioning yourself. Why less really is more when it comes to creating a compelling message and content, how to position yourself as a category of one so you become the trusted authority in your industry and the choice versus just, a choice when your ideal client is searching for someone to invest in. And of course, the missing factor to becoming uncopyable that many businesses overlook. Now, just a heads up, I do speak really quickly. I've got a lot to cover. And as Linda has said, for some of you, you might think, well, she's got a funny accent. So I have to apologize for that. Because of the content that I'm sharing today, please do not be overwhelmed. As Linda said, she is recording this, but I'm sure we've all heard the saying, you don't know what you don't know. So my intention for you today is to empower you by helping you to identify the gaps and areas of learning and growth opportunities for you so that you know what may be missing, because there's nothing worse than knowing that something is missing and hoping that this area that you're working on is going to be the thing that's going to make the difference. So I want to give you this big picture overview that you can take away. Now, all of the insights that I share with you today, each point is what I call individually important. Each is individually important. However, together, collaboratively, they are crucial, because if one or more of these individually important aspects is not in place for your business, it's most likely impacting everything. So for some of you, don't think, oh, I'm going to throw everything out and start from scratch. Maybe it's just tweaking a number of the things that we covered today, and that is what's going to catapult you and your message. Now, I'm a little bit embarrassed to show you this, but this is going back, goodness, well over 2 decades ago when I started my very first business. I'd had my first child, and my husband had said to me, well, look, because after 12 months, I was getting itchy feet because I love working and love problem solving and all of that. And he said, if we buy you a computer, do you think you can work from home? Well, the rest is history. But this is the very first business card that I created. I even created that logo, which, like, how embarrassing. But anyway, and I share this today because if I think back to the woman that I was then, I have learned so much, and I've probably made every single one of the mistakes and then some of what I'm sharing with you today. However, when I think about the courses that I did, the things that I studied, I've followed a lot of bright, shiny objects, and I wish that someone had have tapped me on the shoulder and said to me, Annemarie, focus on this, because focus for me, because I can get distracted like nobody's business, focus on these things and work at this. And so if I think to where I am now, I'm the CEO and founder, as Linda said, of Industry Thought Leader Academy, Ambitious Entrepreneur Podcast Network, and Be the Difference movement. And we're going to be starting a summit too under the Be the Difference movement brand, which is really exciting. A creator and coach and mentor of signature programs, Podcasting with Purpose, Interviewing with Purpose, which are 2 of the programs I love. I love all of them, but this is a special place in my heart for these programs because it helps me to elevate change makers' voices and message out into the world. Core Business Foundations is something that I also offer, which is kind of the program that sits on the back of what I'm sharing with you today, and the Influence Alliance. And I share this with you because if I look back over the years and the offerings, I never really had key offerings that I could put my, flag in the sand and say, this is what I offer that's relevant for my ideal clients, and really build sub-brands around that. And it hasn't been till I've got real clarity around that and had these key offerings that there was this level of inner confidence that I just know that the body of work that I've created is going to make an impact. And I know that each and every one of you today is exactly in the same place. You've got a body of knowledge and work. For some of you, it's still inside, it's still rattling around. So today I want to hope that it's going to give you some inspiration to really know how to position that. And for others, you may already have a body of knowledge and work out there. You're just going to polish around the edges to really start making that impact. And so personal branding, business and podcast strategy integrated is really where I love to work, and recently cited as one of the top 20 business coaches in Melbourne, even though I work with clients globally. And it's because of all of the things that I've implemented, and I continue to evolve and learn and implement and change and pivot. It's just one of those things in business. But everything that I'm sharing today with you, I'm doing myself. So I would not say something to you that, yeah, you need to do that if I've not done it myself, because I know that it really does work. All right, let's move to the next slide. Now, hindsight is the best teacher. And I know for many of you, you're sharing hindsight lessons to your clients because these are things that you've learned along the way. But, you know, we've often been told you need to crush the competition, be louder, be faster, be leaner, you fill in the gap. These are what marketers are saying in the world. But, you know, here's the thing. The market has changed. Your ideal clients' needs, desires, motivations often have changed as well. So rather than copying and following what everyone else is doing, this is what I encourage you to do, because I'm assuming you are here because you are a change maker. You're on a mission to make a bigger difference in the world. So be that difference in all that you do. Focus and create this undeniable and distinguishable experience that only you can deliver. I'm talking about an experience, and I'll share in a moment in some of the upcoming slides how you can capture that and then start to get intentional with that. And of course, write your own rules. I've got a rule that, you know, silly rules were meant to be broken, and that I can make a rule and establish a rule. And if I need to break that rule or change that rule, I can do that as well. But in your industry, there are outdated rules that are playing in a game that you are never going to win. So don't compete with those outdated rules. Stand up, speak up, challenge the status quo in a way that inspires and empowers your ideal client, because they will listen. You will be the breath of fresh air in your industry. And rather than comparison, because we know that that kills, be the better version of you. So don't measure your success on what other competitors are doing. You need to aim to be the best version of you every single day. So let's dive in and see how you can be the difference in your industry. And let's define what a distinguishable, uncopyable, and irresistible means. And when I'm talking about each of these areas, I'm talking about your message, your brand, which is your reputation, the experience you create, as well as your offerings, your programs, the solutions that you offer. And so distinguishable is really being unique. It's setting yourself apart from your competitors. When it comes to uncopyable, this means that no one can take your message and story and weave it into their own, because they can't validate. They haven't walked your journey. They haven't overcome the challenges that you have overcome. They haven't come up with the solutions and methodologies that you have come up with to overcome the challenges. And so for some of you, it's thinking about, I need to go a little bit deeper. I need to, and I'm going to share a little bit later on some of the other factors need to consider. But if currently your message and your story can be copied because it's too broad, and the words that you are using others can leverage as well, you're not uncopyable. So that's what I mean by uncopyable. No one can copy it because it's not relevant to them. And irresistible is it's so totally aligned with what your ideal customer is experiencing and even looking for. They cannot help but take notice. So I hope that we are now all on the same page with what those three words are and what they mean to me. Now let's have a look at what are some of the common personal branding myths and mistakes. And this one is thinking that it's a fad and unimportant. Now, I heard this years ago, you know, even in my career coaching practice, which is where I started. And, I'm seeing a few lines here. Is that from my end, Linda?
Yeah, my hand's not on the computer.
Oh, okay. Mine is either. But anyway, there you go. Someone's adding some lovely things there, hopefully highlighting all of these are really important. There we go. So even today I hear others, personal branding, it's just a fad word, but actually it is important, because a personal brand is your experience. It's your reputation. I call it your promise of value and your promise of expectation. I'll talk about that in a little bit more in a moment. But also another myth or mistake is confusing personal branding with corporate branding. They're two very different things. And someone asked me the other day on LinkedIn, what is the difference? A personal brand is really very much what you bring to the table. It's individuals, even if you've got a team. Every single person has a personal brand. The corporate brand can also have an experience that they want to create, a voice, a vision, a mission, a purpose. And hopefully the team that you've hired and you as the CEO of your business, your personal brand aligns brand, with your corporate brand. But they're two very distinct things. And some of you are creating businesses that down the track, you may, in your succession planning, pass on to other people. So it's always important that your corporate brand, your business brand, is one that sets apart and that stands alone as well. Trying to be all things to all people, please don't do that. Know who your ideal client is and really speak to them. Everybody else can go and work with other people, the people that are working in your industry as well, but you need to know who your ideal client is. Now, thinking that in order to stand out, you have to be controversial. Now, I work with, and I'm licensed with a system called the Branding with Archetypes. And one of the archetypes is Maverick. Now, Maverick is very controversial. So you'll probably see them using very controversial language. Their style is very direct and in your face. And that's fine for a Maverick. But if you are an alchemist or a humanitarian, the approach that you are going to take is going to be very different from, say, the Maverick. So this is where you need to identify what is my experience and how am I going to bring my message, my brand to life. Trying to emulate what other successful people are doing. Their style is successful for them. They have a certain level of charisma in the way that they do them. You need to identify what that is for you and then be that every single day. Listening to others tell you what they think you should be. As a personal branding strategist, I have never ever told someone you need to be this or that. I'll ask them questions and help them. I call the example that I give is I'm like a gem hunter. And, when someone goes hunting for a gem, they take out this rock and it just looks like a rock with mud and sharp edges. And through the tools I use, and, like a gem hunter has a little hammer that chips away and then may have a polishing cloth. And then you're left with this beautiful gemstone, which was there all along. It was there already inside. We just need to go exploring. So other people can't tell you who you already are, but you can certainly help identify what those unique areas are about yourself and then live that out on purpose every day. And then focusing only on external brand components. This, of course, is important. That's communicating your brand through the logos and images. But if you have not captured and are able to define what that personal brand is, then your graphic designers and your brand, the visual aspects of your brand is going to be very hard to communicate if you're not clear on that. So hopefully you've got a better understanding of those areas. Now, why authenticity is not a buzzword, it's paramount. Authenticity and being authentic, it has been long debated and overused by marketers, I know. Now, I did an article back in 2011 because there was a lot of controversy and, people saying, well, authenticity, what is that? And is it really important? That was the article that I wrote. And I identified a couple of people who are very well known in their industry. And one was reflecting on, do we keep it real? Authenticity, we've heard that it's keeping it real. But does that mean if someone is typically rude or obnoxious, is that authentic for them? And then that went on the whole other spectrum of acting as if, faking it. Does that mean that we need to try and be something or someone that we're not? For instance, and I've had clients that have said, look, I'm not naturally compassionate. I'm not naturally empathetic. How can I pretend to be? But, we know people who are not being genuine and you don't want to be disingenuous. And so, I said, don't try and be something else or faking it. So what I talk about when I say authenticity and authentic, it's identifying that unique brilliance and then giving yourself permission and your freedom to show up as the best and intentional you. That's so important. So hopefully we know that authenticity is important, but it's one of the best aspects of you, and then be that intentionally every single day. Now, when I talk about less really being more, this is what I'm talking about when I share more about creating a compelling message and content. Now, often what we do, and this is especially true if we've got a diverse body of knowledge, what we then tend to share is all about that body of knowledge. But what ends up happening is we overwhelm our audience with too diverse topics. So don't overwhelm. You've got to really narrow the focus. And I call that your umbrella statement, which I'll share a little bit more about in a moment. You've got to have an understanding and then bring aspects of your diverse expertise and show how it's relevant to that promise of value and promise of outcome, that unique offering and outcome that you're going to be sharing and helping your ideal clients achieve. So don't overwhelm. And you need to unlearn industry jargon and terminologies. In fact, Linda was talking about this a couple of days ago in one of the coaches' roundtables. You know, so often as coaches, we are so excited about the modalities that we have been trained in because we know it is going to support our clients. And so we rattle off. And I remember years ago, there was a new website here in Australia that was able to, coaches were able to advertise. But you know what the website did was it categorized all of the coaches under their modalities. NLP, kinesiology, all of those kind of things. Guess what? Your clients have no idea often what NLP means or what kinesiology and all of the other incredible modalities. But what this board should have done, or their website should have done, was to categorize on the typical issues and problems that people are struggling with, because clients really don't care what it is that you're doing. Some do, obviously, but you need to lead with what the problem is and incorporate that into your language, as well as, of course, the outcomes. That has to be very much jargon-free and bringing in the kind of language that your ideal client is using. And you don't want to go to the other extreme of underwhelming either. So don't overwhelm, don't underwhelm. And that's being too broad. Those people that that are talking to you and you're thinking, I have no idea what they're talking about, but I'm just going to smile and go, that's nice. And so what you want to do is instead to create compelling, insightful content that resonates with your ideal client, and do that consistently. So how to position yourself as a category of one. I want to give you an overview. And so here where I'm going to share with some of the models and some of the systems that I've come up with over the years. Now, the distinction triad is something that I developed after working with a woman in the career industry that had gone from office manager. She started off as an admin, gone office manager, and who worked her way up to now overseeing different project management, implementation of new IT, and some, significant change management programs. And when I had developed her resume, she had said to me, is this me? And how often do we not recognize our own gifts and talents? So anyway, she went off and I didn't hear from her for another 8 years or so. And when she came back and wanted an update to her resume, I said, look, I'm sorry, don't do that anymore. And she said, I've not been able to find anyone who's able to capture my message so well on my resume. And she said, where I am today, she said, I actually recognize and can relate to the person you wrote about so many years ago. And she said, I've got so many other exciting things that I've done, and I couldn't think of anyone else that can capture that on my document. And I knew that I was in front of a change maker, and I said to her, I will help you. And it wasn't until I went through the additional information and the successes and the achievements and the challenges that she had helped the organization overcome, and now she was in charge of, multi-million-dollar projects, that I could see that these three things were so important and had been one of the reasons that had enabled her to continue to be, recommended and put in charge of these incredible change management projects ahead of many of her male counterparts. And it was in a very male-dominant area. She had the aptitude, the attitude, and the approach. And I think you need to have all of these three things in place. Aptitude is really your talent. It's your strengths, it's your skills and your knowledge. Your attitude, this is your character. This is your mindset, the beliefs. This is the frame of mind. And your attitude, your mindset and beliefs is often going to impact the approach that you have, your style, your temperament, your reaction, how you react to things, kind of your sensibilities to what's going on. She was able to really bring her approach in a way that was very feminine, and that is the empathy empathy, the understanding, the compassion, but also from from a driven point of view, she was able to develop that too and bring that in. All of those three things were so important. And I could see that, so often when one or more of these things is lacking, the rest are impacted negatively too. Because you've heard there's some people who are incredibly intelligent, on the IQ, yet their attitude and their approach may be a little bit not so good, And then in the middle, you have your inner brilliance, which I always say that your purpose is intertwined between what you're passionate about and what peeves you off, because you can't help but stand up and speak when you're passionate about something, and you cannot help but stand up and speak when someone is speaking, against or in an area that that what they're saying is just either not true or is not supporting people. For me, that was starting a podcast years ago in 2008. The global financial crisis hit and the media was talking about doom and gloom. And I cannot stand that doom and gloom, which is why we started that podcast and said we need to be the voice of hope and inspiration amongst this doom and gloom. Sadly, the media hasn't changed much, which is why I'm so excited about, helping others to start their podcast to be the voice of hope and inspiration in their industries. Now, from the distinction triad, I've developed the distinction model, and I want to go through that with you today, again, to give you that big picture overview. These are the things that you want to have in place. Each of these aspects is going to help you become distinguishable, uncopyable, and irresistible to your ideal client. So let's just dive in to the first one, and this is your message. I've spoken already about your umbrella statement. This is so important, especially if you've got diverse expertise and you're thinking, how do I bring that all in together? I also talk about milestones and markers and milestones. This is your invisible thread, your story that no one else can copy. And then also signature sayings and slogans. And I want to talk about each of these just very briefly. So your umbrella statement is so useful if you are a multi-passionate individual. I am, who love learning and who love, having diverse expertise and who are struggling to focus on just one thing. This was me. In the career industry, I just did not want to do resume writing or interview coaching or online profiles or helping people with job loss. And I didn't. I did all of those things, but it was confusing to people. Do you do resumes? Do you do this or that? So I created an example that I've got here: get hired, get noticed, get hired, get paid what you are worth, because it was this umbrella statement that brought it all together. And each of the things that I did to support people was either helping them to get noticed, helping them to get hired, or helping them to get paid what they are worth. But you see, that umbrella statement was able to pull all of that together. The umbrella statement really is your overarching outcome-focused statement that showcases your promise of value and promise of expectation. And you can also use that as your tagline. Now, when I talk about the promise of value, I'm talking about the value that you are showcasing and also promising to support your clients with. And it's outcome focused. So in other words, my clients knew that if they were going to work with me, I would help them get noticed, get hired, get paid what they're worth. And they were also struggling with that as well. So when you think of your umbrella statement, make sure that it's very outcome focused, specifically to what your ideal clients are talking about. And then the promise of expectation, it's like future pacing. So what they can expect through working with you when they invest in themselves through investing in your program. And that was to get noticed, get hired, get paid what you're worth. So you see that the content that you're sharing is not only showcasing what it is that you can do for them and support them with through sharing your expertise, it's also a promise of expectation that if they were to hire you, this is what they're going to walk away with. And when you get so clear on that and your message is consistently reinforcing that, you can see that eventually, people are going to want to work with you because everything that you're sharing and doing and talking about is continuously showcasing the value and expectation. And now, of course, I talk about building your reach, building reputation as a trusted authority, and revenue with a podcast, because that's what a lot of my clients are looking for, especially when it comes to podcasting. So I hope that kind of gives you a little bit more of an understanding and kind of questioning, is my outcome focused statement really on point? Maybe you need to narrow that down a bit. Let's talk about markers and milestones. This is what I call your invisible thread. It's the story that weaves everything together. Now, by the way, you can have a number of different stories, invisible threads, depending on whether you know what audience you're talking to. But I would hope that all of these invisible threads does lead to the ultimate goal of where your ideal client is wanting to achieve. What I mean by that is if you've got an ideal client, you take them through their customer journey and their customer learning and growth. And you can develop what I call your business program pathway that you can start with helping someone in, point A and then point B and then point C. And so, these invisible threads can get woven within that. But, because I've got an invisible thread or a story around podcasting, I have it around building a profitable, scalable business, and I have one around, the irresistible, distinguishable, and uncopyable. But they're all for the same client, and they're taking them all down the same pathway, the program pathway and offerings. So just sharing that. But a marker is a significant event. It's a challenge that you've had to overcome. You've addressed this. And through doing that, you've come up with new and innovative methodologies, which you now teach your clients, the steps that you took. And this is what I call your signature system, which is one of the things that Linda said I was going to talk about. Your signature system is very different, your methodologies, your IP, to your competitor, because they haven't walked your journey. And so in this instance, your message has to capture that in your story. For instance, one of my markers is when I started my podcast in 2008, we struggled to monetize it. So after 2 years, we had to stop production. I continued to podcast, and I still have. And then it wasn't till my worst business failure ever, which is, by the way, the best thing that ever happened to me. I started Women in Leadership podcast, and 3 episodes in, I accidentally secured 2 4-figure clients. And it wasn't until a few years later, I thought, if I could do that by accident, imagine what I could do is if I did whatever I did intentionally. So a book, a program later, Podcasting with Purpose was born. And now I teach people exactly what needed to be in place. Many of those things that I'm teaching is what I'm sharing with you today. That's a unique story. That's unique to me. So what's unique to you in your story? And then the milestones are the successes and achievements that have come out of your methodologies and your steps and what you've secured, and they have to be relevant to your ideal client, and they have to validate your teaching and methodologies. Now, often I see that they're not relevant to the ideal client. They're just, needs to just be a little bit more refined, or it's not validating your teaching and methodologies, because you can see if it does validate that, it adds to the promise of expectation and promise of value. So I hope that makes sense, but that's what markers and milestones are. Now, your signature sayings and slogans, and we've all heard Nike, just do it. These are the pearls of wisdom that you share. And what that does is it challenges the status quo of your industry, as well as innovating and transforming. And it can also become branded hashtags. Yesterday, I was working with a client, and Sherry, who is also a member of LeadHERship Global, and we mapped out her 3-part podcast series. And as I was listening to her and asking her, what do you do next? And what do you do next? All of this gold was coming out of her mouth. And I go, this is also a signature slogan. Oh, this is also one of your principles. And so often we've got this body of knowledge and this expertise that we don't really see as this could be a signature saying. No one else can say this because it underpins the markers and the milestones, where you've been, the challenges you overcome, and the solutions that you've come up with. So what are some of the sayings that you say? One of them that I say is message before microphone, because so many people, when they talk about podcasting, well, what equipment do I need? And I know, and I say, look, if you haven't sorted out your message first, you cannot edit and mix compelling content that converts, that nurtures listeners into leads from fluff and banter. So don't worry about the microphone. Invest first in really capturing a unique message. And then I also have another one, podcasting with purpose, as well. And I've created hashtags out of that, and they're very much used consistently when I'm sharing my content online and on podcasts and so forth. So I want you to think about what are some of the signature sayings that I have and slogans, and continuously weave them in to your presentations and content wherever you are sharing, your brilliance. Let's talk about methodologies. This is really your IP and signature system, which I've already hinted at, and 7 core principles. So these are the unique steps and methodologies that you take clients through to help them go from struggling to successful outcome. Now, I know for some coaches, they are trained in a certain methodology that they're licensed to give and to deliver. But what I would recommend that they do is to really look at, well, what aspects of my personal journey and story can I add to these methodologies to bring out into the world? And even if you're not licensed to deliver a program, but bringing your own, you need to, if you're a life coach or a business coach, what are those unique steps? Can I package them together? This is one of mine. Marketing is a pillar, message is a pillar, mindset is a pillar, money a pillar, momentum is a pillar. These are 5 steps that I take clients through. What are the steps that you take clients through? Create that system, that signature system that no one else is delivering. And then, of course, if you title it that's aligned with your signature brand, it creates that unique experience that only you are going to be able to work with clients on. Now, 7 core principles. These are statements that underpin your teachings and your methodologies. So your signature system and methodologies, and here are 2 of mine. I created these principles and I often will teach them. I have been teaching them because I know these are so important, and I've got them around personal branding, and I've also got them with podcasting as well. Why are they so important? And again, if it challenges the status quo, it very much can position yourself as being very unique and uncopyable. For instance, you might not be able to read it there. The very first principle of podcasting with purpose is the right podcast strategy begins with the end in mind, your desired outcomes, your unique circumstances, and aligned with your business model and your business focus. And then I have a whole teaching around that. And my signature programs helps people to unpack that for themselves. So you can see how everything is flowing through, everything is consistent. All of these components that I'm talking about continues to strengthen that message, and why I'm saying what I'm saying. Here's one of the reasons why it's so important. And then you'll have success stories around that as well. So what are your core principles? And are they, positioning you and your story and your methodologies apart from all of your competitors, but specifically to the needs and desires of your ideal client? Now, when we're talking about mannerisms, this is the unique blend of your uncopyable characteristics. Again, your signature brand, your voice, your vision, your values. All of these are so important. And how often, if we were to look at in a mirror, are you able to list 3 to 5 words? These are experience words, the core values of who makes you you. And are these coming through in your message? I talk about this in being on brand. Now, one of the things, words for me is inspiring. And I know that there are some topics of conversation that I really will not participate in. And it's often the times where I break my own rules, because I tend to do that sometimes. And then all of a sudden, that hits the fan. And I think, I knew it, because I break my own rule. But when I do share, I try and bring a different point of view, to an inspiring point of view. There is always, so not negativity. There's one of my colleagues that years ago, she would always share negative stuff. And she didn't realize she was never really on social until something prompted her to blurt something out. And, she created this reputation of being someone that whinged a lot, which really wasn't her, but she tended to keep quiet when everything was going well and not so much when it wasn't. So, you need to understand this, your mannerisms, because this becomes part of the charisma that you continue to live out, so who is that for you? And so this is the distinction model, the message aspect of that. And you can see here on this diagram with these beautiful little blue, pen marks there. I don't know how that happened, but anyway, there you go. We go with the flow. Right in the center, there's the uncopyable aspect. Message, methodologies, mannerisms. And you're just so clear on these things. They just come out consistently over and over again in everything that you do. But I do want to, before we finish today, add 3 more elements to that, because now that you've got your message really landing well, then people are going to say to you, well, how are you uncopyable and irresistible as far as your offerings? And this is where we really start to talk about more of the business models and your offerings. Mindset, I think, is so important, because, and how many people do we hear talk about, who am I to speak into that? The imposter syndrome. Many of us have that. Who am I to talk about that? There's so many other people talking about that. But you need to create a culture of thought leadership, even if it's for yourself. And this is understanding that even the most simplest of things or ideas that you have come up with can be the thing that pivots someone, that gets them on a crossroad onto a path that they have been struggling to achieve. How often do we, anyone can do that? Well, no, not anyone can do that. And so you need to identify that and have the mindset that this is going to be life-changing. The information that I'm sharing is going to be life-changing. And you want to do that from a position of having that inner confidence. And it's interesting when we talk about thought leadership, and a lot of people have said, I'm not a thought leader. The thoughts that you are sharing, the ideas that you are sharing is going to be a leading reason why someone changes and challenges their status quo, and then starts, the journey to transformation for them. And that comes from you and standing up and speaking up. But Edelman and LinkedIn in 2020 did a survey, fascinating results that came out of it, that said that when businesses and brands, and each of one of us are a business and a brand, they reaped greater rewards and outcomes in the area of building their reputation and even sales in comparison than those who didn't. So, ask you the question, a rhetorical question for you to think about. Am I positioning myself? Do I have the right mindset that I can move forward and know that what I am doing is going to impact the lives of, thousands, tens of thousands, millions of people around the world? So the second aspect that I want to share internally in this model is the methods. And this is taking your content, which is your signature program, your unique steps, and developing them into signature programs and offerings that practically enroll clients into them for you. And I talk about creating an option, a range of options, either a business program pathway, which gets people from stage 1 to stage 2 or stage 3, or different options of how they can work with you. You're good, better, best. Some people, they just want to go VIP. I want all of what you've got, and I want you to hold my hand all the way through. Others maybe not. They may want more of a group experience, and others may want to let me start off with the good first and then work my way up, because you're seeding and leading them into the promise of expectation that I'm going to go into your mastermind one day and I'm going to work until I'm able to do that. Do you have a range of programs that, as you're speaking about them, it seeds and leads them? I cannot wait to start working with them. And I'm starting on this area right now. So that's something that we need to consider. Your programs need to be so compelling as well, and very unique from what everyone else is doing. And it may be the delivery aspect. And remember, one of the things that is always going to be different is the experience that you create. And who creates that experience? You do. Even if you're, the programs that you're using to deliver, the platform, I should say, is similar to everyone else. It's the experience that you create around that that's going to make that very uncopyable and distinguishable. Now, the last M in that model is momentum. And this is the one thing that Linda was saying that many people don't have. And this is a compelling, irresistible giveaway. Signature giveaway, which is also, I call your digital asset, that ideal clients can't wait to get access to when you share more about that. And it starts them on the relationship building of continuing of know, like, and trust. but it, gets them into your relationship building funnel, your nurturing sequence. It really is spending more time with them. It's giving them many wins. It's really helping them start to shift some of the things that they're really struggling with. But a lot of us don't have a digital asset or an irresistible signature giveaway, which again seeds the promise of value and the promise of expectation. Goodness, if this is what's, so valuable in a free offering, imagine what it is like if I'm working with with that particular person. What are you building as your digital assets that again are distinguishable, uncopyable, because it's modeled on your signature system and your IP. All fits together beautifully, and it starts that relationship. And so if you have a look at one of the tools that I created, and now, all of my clients, I recommend that they do the same, is to capture their signature system. Often they're 5 pillars. 5 pillars is a really good, solid number of pillars in a signature system. And so what we then do is we create each of the pillars some questions. And so this becomes a kind of like a quiz and a checklist that you can use with your ideal client so that they can see what they don't yet have in place. They can identify the gaps, and it again seeds and leads promise of value, promise of expectation, because if they've only got a few things ticked and they can see, oh my goodness, no wonder things aren't working for me, you can see how this really works well. And so what I then get my clients to do when they talk about their podcast and they layer it on top of that, the first 3 episodes actually dives deeper into talking about this. They download the quiz and checklist, and then the 3 episodes start to really dive a little bit deeper into this. But you can see that this is an incredible digital asset that you can start to use, and it showcases the promise of value and promise of expectation. So this is a really a great tool to implement. So there you see, if you look at the distinction model around message and monetization, each of these specific areas are so important. And as I mentioned, individually, they are important. Collectively, they are crucial. I'm consistently, tweaking and updating as well. And so for some of you, you realize, okay, I have a little bit of work to do. But if you focus on these areas, these are really going to support you in positioning yourself. We're just about at the end, because I know some of you may be thinking, well, I'd love some support around this. So I'll just finish off with that. And then I'm sure we've got a bit of time for some questions. But I'm not really sure what specifically prompted. There was something that prompted you to attend today, whether you're just starting out in your business or you've been in business a while, but you're just not getting the results. I do know this. I know this for a fact, that it is by no accident that you are here. And I really am a true believer that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So for some of you, that is exactly where you're at the moment. And so a lot of the things that I talked about today are very much what I focus on in the Core Business Foundations Immersive Program, where we focus on each of these core areas, the pillars: your lucrative niche, signature brand, signature system, signature programs, your digital asset. We actually help you, when I say we, me, I actually help you unpack that so that you can create your distinguishable, uncopyable, and irresistible value proposition, so that you're not just a choice, but the choice. And these are the things that we also identify as well. We go even deeper: your umbrella statement, your invisible thread, your core themes and core topics, your 7 principles, your signature slogans. All of those we help you unpack into your core business foundations and what I call your your distinction blueprint. You can find out more information there, Industry Thought Leader Academy /core business foundations. Or if you'd like to have a chat first, just to see where you're at, because some of you may not necessarily like a group coaching program and might want to see if working with me individually is a good fit, annemarie.com/strategy call is the best place for you. All right, Linda, I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Wonderful.
And see if there's any questions about any of the content. I'm happy to share if there's, I think we've still got a bit of time.
Well,
left.
I do want to first start with thanking you, Annemarie. You covered such rich, deep content in an incredible amount of time. I mean, you opened up such incredible insight, such thought leadership. You provided such actionable insight in just an hour. I can't believe it. And so now you know, everyone, while I was so very excited to introduce you to Annemarie Cross, she is obviously a personal branding and podcast expert. Her strategy, her approach to business is absolutely second to none. And this is why she was cited as one of the top 20 business coaches in Australia, because of this incredible level of insight that you just saw. And as you can tell, Annemarie works with consultants and coaches all around the world, helping them create unique, uncopyable, and irresistible brands. So if you're interested in diving more deeply into this, please don't hesitate to reach out to Annemarie. She is a LeadHERship Global member, as most of you are. And so what I would invite you to do is go to the member portal, look up Annemarie, connect with her, or use the information from this recording to connect with her, because she is one of the known most trusted authorities in the industry in creating a unique, uncopyable, and irresistible brand. In fact, she's been dubbed the podcasting queen. She has an award-winning podcast and has been a podcast host before it became a trend, and has been recognized as a pioneer in the podcasting industry. So if you are interested in understanding more about how to create a truly impactful, profitable, purposeful podcast, then Annemarie is definitely the recognized expert in this arena, or how to create an uncopyable message. Obviously, you saw her depth of insight, her incredible wisdom, her incredible expertise, and I invite you to get in touch with her. Her podcasts have actually been syndicated on both national and international radio, and have been listed in the top podcasts for entrepreneurs and small businesses worldwide. So she really is the expert in all things, not just podcasting, but really how to create a uncopyable and distinctive brand for small businesses, for coaches, for brands of either personal or corporate.
Terrific. Thank you, Linda.
Yes, of course. Does anyone have any questions or anything you want to dive into a little bit more? Oh, Nita has one in the chat. Your question under each pillar, are these shared with potential clients or after you kick off your program to set expectations?
Both. I share it even with prospective customers, because what it enables them to do is to see where some of the gaps are, and it also showcases that promise of value. So I do both. So, even you might find that some clients may not be ready yet to work with you. They've still got an understanding of where, some people take a little bit longer to go through their journey. They try it on their own. And then when we start the program, we actually will teach them in those areas. All of those 5 key pillars that you saw on my, the example that I shared were the core business foundations: lucrative niche, signature system, brand, system, programs, and digital asset. So I hope that helps, Nita.
Yeah, it was the 5 pillars, and you had a series of questions underneath. Yes, all of those. Yeah, so I wasn't sure if you're kind of opening up more details, so you're kind of giving too much away too soon.
No, because they're questions. They're questions to see whether someone has that in place. So for instance, if I have a look at my questionnaire, the first one's around marketing, and the first question may be, you struggle to make an impact when you're in the room full of your ideal clients. Yes or no? Yeah, I do actually. So it's actually helping someone identify whether that's an area of stuckness for them, where there's an area of opportunity for learning and growth, or if they've got that in place. Does that make sense? So it's not teaching, it's actually helping them understand whether this is an area that they are still needing to focus on.
Okay. And that's one of your lead magnets that you kind of give out to people.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Lovely. Anyone else? Any questions or any area of distinction you want to make?
Oh, cool. Kendall, let me go back through some of these questions here. Kendall, I see, said, how do you determine your brand archetype? There's a system that I'm licensed in to deliver. And so there's a number of questionnaire that we identify. So, yeah, and it is, yes, through Kendall Summerhawk. Yep. Yeah, great. Yeah, Nita said here, Kendall Summer. I'm actually one of Kendall's certified coaches from many, many years ago.
All right. Anyone else? We're right at time. I can't believe Annemarie was able to fit in all of that incredible content in an hour. That was absolutely a masterclass in some of the fundamentals of how to create a really distinguishable, uncopyable, and irresistible brand. It really was a masterclass provided in literally under an hour. So I'm so grateful for that. I would, again, just invite you, if you want to dive in more deeply, or if you have questions that we haven't been able to get to, if you're a LeadHERship Global member, simply go to our member portal, look up Annemarie and have a private chat with her, or jump on a call with her. If you're not a LeadHERship Global member, and I think there's maybe 2 of you on the call that are guests, you're welcome to reach out to Annemarie. She gave her contact information at the end of this call, but I will tell you, she is absolutely the real deal. She is a change maker. She is a transformational business coach, podcast strategist. She is an expert when it comes to branding. And this is for large corporations, small businesses, consultants, coaches. Everyone can use these principles and practices and apply them to their business or to their personal brand. So I can't recommend Annemarie strongly enough. She really is transformational. Everyone, thank you so much for your time. I am so glad you decided to spend this hour with us. And thank you, especially those that are like late night, like Nita, up at 11 o'clock at night, joining us just to listen to this hour. But I hope it was worth your time. I know I even learned quite a bit. And Annemarie, I am so super grateful to you. Thank you so much for being a LeadHERship Global coach. And thank you so much for sharing your incredible expertise with all of us.